Welcome everyone, I'm Pat Mitchell. Joining me is Adam. This is The Truth Behind the Trade. This is where we analyze a member's trading clinic with Kelvo Raff, the new moderator. We go over his trades, we get down to the root cause of their issues, and not only their issues, but I'm sure most new traders, struggling traders can relate, and this is why we're doing this. So we pull video clips from that session, and then we dissect it and we just dive a little bit deeper, because what we have in trick trades is a no trader left behind guarantee. We always want to make sure that even if a trader is struggling, like most services, they'll just kind of forget about them, kind of throw them off to the side. They don't exist. We'll put them right in the forefront and try and actually help them. We don't want people to not succeed. We need people to succeed. This is why we're doing what we're doing. So hopefully people watch this in its entirety, because we bounce around quite a bit, and I wanted to point that out. And I don't want you guys to miss anything, because a lot of these issues, I know you out there watching these are having. They're issues that I had as a struggling trader when I first started out. So these types of problems are universal. Now, John is a member that has been with us for a while. His main issue that we will uncover here is pretty interesting. It's an interesting one. It's not an uncommon one, but this should be a pretty interesting case study. It has to do with basically listening. I know we cover that a lot, but you're going to see this one's a little special in this way. Where should we start? I think we'll just start right at it. We'll get right into the clips here. So we're going to play this clip and let's rock and roll.
Something you do and it needs changing. Quite a lot of your trades are happening after 10:15. I've noticed quite a few of the charts I'm looking at early this morning. You're not taking the first reaction on these trades.
So I want to point this out, just for those of you that aren't members of Trick Trades, what Kelvo was talking about, because we may use different terminology or whatever. So what Kelvo was talking about is the very first trade. So at the market open at 9:30, we're not necessarily looking for that first 9:30.02 type of trade. We're not looking for that, but we are looking for a first reaction. Okay. Now, first reactions into a valid support or resistance level will always cause some sort of a reaction. Okay. So if it's coming up, you're going to get the reaction of down, meaning we can short that level and pay ourselves on that downswing, right? Because it's going to bump its head into a physical brick wall. That's what support and resistance is. You got to think of it as physical brick walls. And you're driving a car going 100 miles an hour into that brick wall. You're going to bounce, okay? That is why we go for first reactions. That is where we have the highest odds of getting a reaction, a bounce or a rejection at that level, okay? And we look for that first thing in the morning, and I want to explain why. We're looking for these first reactions because at the beginning of the day, because that's where there's a lot of volume in the day, okay? So there's a lot of volume, but there's not an extreme amount of volume where there's a bunch of different traders. So at the beginning of the market open, let's say there is a pool of 1,000 traders. I know it sounds like a lot, but 1,000 traders, okay? Now, past 10:30 a.m., you now have 100,000 traders in that one position. Instead of dealing with 1,000 people and worrying about how random their decision-making is, that's not bad. 1,000 people you can handle. You could even lower the number to 10 people and 100 people. It's the same thing if you wanted to make it smaller, just to kind of grasp the concept. So let's go to 10. 10 people are making decisions in a room, okay? For the most part, you're going to have 70% of them come to the same conclusion, and maybe only 30% of them may have random conclusions. You understand what I'm getting at? So if you raise that number to 100 and you have a room full of 100 people, it's really difficult. You still might have 70%, but that's 70 people now making the same decision, and 30 people instead of 3 people. I may have fucked that up at the beginning. So only 30 people are making these wild decisions. And as the day progresses, that number increases. So instead of 100, now you have 1,000, now you have 10,000, now you have 100,000. And you keep kind of doing that percentage count. It becomes very random, doesn't it? Because that number grows bigger. There's so many random ass people in it making these random stupid decisions that's what happens. So at the first thing in the morning, yes, there's a lot of volume and it can be volatile. And that's why people generally stay away from it. You're making a mistake. That's when you want to be in these trades, because you have the biggest odds of success due to the smallest sample size or pool size of people that are involved with that particular stock. So if you didn't understand what I just said, please go back and rewatch that. It's important to understand. We want, as traders, to have the highest odds of success. We need to know time of day is important and the amount of people and why that time of day is important. Okay, not just that time of day is important, but why it is important. So I just explained one of the reasons why it is so important. Okay, so let's continue. I want to give you that backstory as to why we want him to do what he is doing. And all of this has been explained to John many, many, many times, and as well as all of our members. It's part of our practice. It's part of the whole idea and methodology at Trick Trades.
I've noticed a few of them were after 10:30.
Yeah, and some of some of that is hesitating in the first one, and so then I'm looking for the second one. I also run a 15-minute meeting at 9:45 East, and so I'll be on screen share at 9:30 at the open, and then I need to drop at that 15-minute mark, and then I'll try to rejoin around 9:10. Sometimes I don't make it back on. Until there, and so then I become distracted, right? If I either haven't taken a trade or if I'm in a trade, now I'm kind of balancing two things, and that.
Okay, so this is kind of the first part of what John is having issues with. I understand. I get it. I wasn't always a full-time trader. I used to be a welding contractor out on the pipeline and on facility. I know what it's like to balance a schedule and try and trade at the same time. It's difficult. It's not easy. I don't want to make it seem like I'm not empathetic to someone's needs in their career that they're trying to balance. I get it. I fully get it. The one thing I don't understand that I find a hard time is he has from 9:30 until 9:45, and then he needs to drop off. That's fine. That's okay. That first 15 minutes, we are generally executed. Now, where he is in his Trick Trade Size Up app, it's an application that we have that is proprietary to Trick Trades that gets members to size up properly. He is in Wheelhouse 1, the very first stage. That is only trading with one contract, working on executions. Okay? That means you're in and out of these positions very quickly. Your intention in that is to not necessarily make money. That's just a byproduct of it. You're working on your executions. So you enter into the level and you pay yourself on the first push. Okay? Easy enough. How long would you say a trade lasts generally from the time you execute it until you pay yourself, Adam?
2 to 5 minutes at the most.
At the most.
Contract. Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at a 2 to 5 minute window. So that, let's say it takes 5 minutes to get the trade to come into the level, which I'm sure Adam would agree that's pretty common. That would be a pretty basic day at Trick Trades. First 5 minutes were usually executed, maybe 10 minutes. That's fine. So he'll be in the trade then for about 2 to 5 minutes. That is a perfect 15-minute window. It generally does not go over that. If it does go over that, he could always set a hard stop, even though that's not exactly what we're trying to do with that first execution. But if it came down to it, he could just exit out of the trade. Okay, I'll have to either eat the loss or take the gain, wherever it is at that time, take his meeting, and then come back. It's not a big deal. The act of this is to just execute and then pay yourself. That's it. That's all you have to do in Wheelhouse 1. And then you build your account from there, making about 10 to 20% in a trade, which would equate to $10 to $20 per trade. And you don't need many trades. You need 10 or 13 trades in order to get sized up to the next wheelhouse. It's not a lot. It's not a big ask. You should be able to accomplish this in about 2, maybe 3 weeks maximum, right? Good to go. So with him not doing this and him basically hesitating on that first trade, and we'll get into that in a second. I want to get Adam's take on that. With him coming back at 10 a.m., 10 to 10 a.m., well, all of that live trading is now, it's done, because I don't like trading past 10 and even like up to 10:30. 10:30 is the maximum, but I generally do not place a trade after 10 a.m. We get in and we get out for the reasons I discussed at the beginning of this. So I don't want to continue trading. I don't want to be executing trades when there's a million people making a million random ass decisions in a trade. I want to keep that pool size small, so then I can base things off of, what these stocks would normally do. Once the action becomes muddy, I'm really no longer interested, unless it's a super valid setup, which does happen. Okay. But he's missing that. And then he places a trade when Kelvo is then running these clinics, which is what you're seeing on the recording. Adam, what's your take on that? Because I know you have some experience with that when it comes to not executing that first trade.
Boy, it comes down to having faith in the process, trust in the process, and obeying the process. And as adults, one of the things I've struggled with, and I know Jen, and we can just see in the behavior of many traders, we're in charge of our life. Either we're entrepreneurs, we're leaders in our field, we're independent, and it's very unfamiliar to surrender that independence to somebody else.
Yes.
And so everywhere in life, we have to question what people say, because if we don't, we get burned. And so we bring this reality into trading, and it's like, well, I don't really like that. Then you've got to add into the fact that there is a lot more volatility at the market open. It's just basically like a horse getting ran out of the starting gate. You just, like, the bell dings and off you go. And then it's like, well, wait, whoa, what's happening here? And our minds can't keep up with what's going on the chart. And so we sit here and observe the move that you're guiding us into, and we miss it. We miss it because of doubt. We miss it because of lack of experience, lack of self-confidence, lack of, if I take this trade, am I going to lose my money? There's a whole bunch of reasons.
Lack of emotional control, the whole
lack of emotional control. So all these factors are going on because we are yet to be trained. We're still in the training process. And that's why Wheelhouse One is so important, is to keep our size small so we can focus on what it is we're here to learn, which is our emotional control and our discipline, and submitting to this process of learning to Pat's guidance. And I fought that forever. And I know Jen did too. It's just like, I did not want to submit. I wanted to see for myself. I wanted to see for myself over and over and over. And so then what was happening while I was in this state of wanting to see for myself, didn't trust your teaching, waited for that 10-15, when everything slows down, when the charts have already tested levels, when all these things, these opportunities have already happened. Now I'm formulating my own idea of what the next opportunity is, because things slow down. I mean, the charts, how often do we see it goes up, down, then it just kind of tapers off and churns for the rest of the day, apart from some random big moves.
Yeah.
So I was feeling much safer when everything started to slow down. The horse kind of starts to run out of breath. The pack is all falling behind, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to get into the game because things are now at my comfortable pace.
Yeah.
And that's when you enter, and that's when you lose, because you are acting like the retail traders that have now applied all of this decision fatigue, because there is that emotional outburst at the starting gate. There is this doubt that's burning our gas tank down, as we're referring to as this decision fatigue, and you fall for the trap. And that's what's happening here. And then we add into it, as we see in John's chart, where we're going down, down, and down, there's a habit of denial of reality going on. The denial of reality that at the opening of the market, I need to do what Pat tells. If we don't do that, that's a denial of reality. If we don't take that trade we're supposed to take, we're just in this cycle of denial. And now we see it playing out, manifesting in these charts that are going down instead of up.
And you're doing things your way, and your way doesn't work.
Right.
And that's a difficult thing to get through generally to people that, especially what I've noticed, and you got to remember, I've trained tens of thousands of traders. I have a pretty good idea of certain groups of people who will do things differently. I find that white collar males, especially if they're in a mid to high level of either they own their own business and it's more white collar, and or they're in mid to upper management, they have a real hard time listening to others. That's just a fact of the matter. It's why Adam had the same issue that John has had at the beginning. It's because they come from a place, they're intelligent people. They're intelligent, they're strong, they know what they're doing, right? And it's that part of that, just kind of what's ingrained in them, ego, I guess, if you want to call it, because that's ultimately what it boils down to. They will not accept people's help. They'll pay for the help. They're open to it, but they won't receive that help. And it's a hard thing to break. That's the group of people I find it can be difficult to get through to them. Now, one of the easier sides is even if they are in mid to upper management or they own their own business, but on the blue collar side, I can get through to them like that because they went through an apprenticeship where they had to submit to a journeyman in that trade, welder, carpenter, electrician, plumber, whatever, mechanic, whatever. You as an apprentice are submitting to someone that is going to teach you. So there's a different training process that is there. All of this stuff is relevant and it's crucial. You need to know, and this is why it's important that there needs to be some level of communication between the member and the coach, because I need to know. I can't just guess at it, right? I can't guess what Adam does, right? I can't guess. I can guess at some people. Some people you can just tell, oh yeah, he's definitely one of the guys because I used to be a tradesman, right? So it's like I can generally pick them out. There's some people it's hard to tell, right? So I don't want to go down a weird path here, but I'm telling you, it's important. It's important to understand what group you're in. Like right now, like not to go off on another side note here, but I find it's people are really, they're hesitant in forming groups because it's either racist or sexist or whatever the hell. At the end of the day, folks, the reality is we are in groups. We're in a million different groups. We just need to know what group we're in. Doesn't mean it's good, doesn't mean it's bad, but there are groups and everybody needs to be taught differently. And I've always found it's a little more difficult to get through to, like I just said, that group of people because they're strong, they're highly intelligent, they're motivated, they're self-starters, they're the whole nine, they're the whole package, what you would expect that you would want out of a trader. Yes. But when you're trying to coach them, they'll fight you. Now, they won't physically fight you. They won't tell you to go fuck yourself and all that fun stuff. They won't do that. They won't maybe even realize that they're fighting you, but they are fighting you because they want to do it their own way. This is where submitting needs to happen. Nobody likes that word. I've said that. We've talked about this. Adam and I have talked about this. Nobody likes that fucking word. You have to. You have to submit to your coach. Have to. That's the way it is. You need to give in and you need to trust them. I've been saying it for years. When you come into trick trades, you need to give me 100% of your trust. That is way easier said than done. I know what type of a statement that is. The reality of the world that we live in, we don't live in a world where you should be giving trust over to people, right? We understand that. That's what makes that statement hard to say and then hard on the student's side to receive. It's difficult to do because John is someone that has taken part in the Trick Trades Momentum, which is our live day trading course where I work with a real small group of focused traders. But I walk them through really difficult situations. And I know Adam and Jen have both participated in Momentum 2 times or 3 times?
3.
3. This is their 3rd round that they're in. So they've seen it. They've seen it, right? And if you are going to continue to fight me, you're not going to get anything out of it. You may think you are through the education and everything else, but then you're just going to do it your own way. And I've seen that happen. It doesn't happen a lot in Momentum. Actually, that's where we find our most successes with Momentum. But if you don't submit, it doesn't matter. I could literally hand you the Trick Trades Book of Secrets, whatever the fuck it is, right? If there was some sort of like physical book of every little piece of information in this book, you could plug it into your brain and download it. You wouldn't be able to implement it because you're still going to want to do things your own way. You got to submit and you have to trust. It's difficult to do, but again, when you are paying for a service, and my service isn't cheap, it's a premium service, right? This is the best of the best. It's as good as it gets. So you're paying good money to be there. You have to listen. Before you sign up, what I would recommend anyone to do is go search me on social media, on my YouTube or on my Twitter. Mind you, my old Twitter got banned in the George Floyd days because I told it how it was, and that's why they fucking banned me. So that is a new Twitter account. My YouTube is still up, always has been up. And that goes back years. And you're going to see the same person teaching the same thing from day one. That goes back almost a fucking decade at this point. There's a lot of information on there. Some of the older videos I've taken off just because there were penny stocks and stuff like that. Mind you, it's still relevant, but I don't like being associated with penny stocks. So that's why they're not necessarily on there. But you can see from that time to where I am now, it's the same person. Nothing's changed, right? The strategy is the same. It may be tweaked because obviously I've grown as a trader too, but it's all the same. So do some research, and that might give you that little bit of added trust, right? To see it's like, oh, this guy, he's not a chameleon. He's not acting like this. And then next week he's acting like that. He's the exact same fucking guy. And that's a good amount of time to get a pretty good idea about a person, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something that you could start with. Now, I don't think it's that John doesn't trust me. I don't think it's that at all. He does consciously, but subconsciously, there is something going on there. Like, what are the odds, Adam? Like, answer honestly. What are the odds of the very first, if you could give it like a percentage off the top of your head, what are the odds of the very first trade, the main watch, to trigger and work? What are the odds of it working?
90+%. I mean,
easily.
Extremely high. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have that high of a hit rate and you're constantly worrying about the 10 or the 5% of the time it doesn't work, that's like living your life being wrapped in a plastic bubble. I know some of you mutants out there did that 4 years ago, but I sure in the fuck didn't. So that's what it's like. You want to wrap yourself up in a plastic bubble to make yourself safe, right? If you're worrying about something not working 5 or 10% of the time, you're going to struggle with this, right? Because there are certain markets that probably goes down to 70% of the time for like a week or 2 or 3 straight until the market kind of gets its shit together and goes back to hitting the way it should hit. And even then, I don't even think it's 70%. I think I'm being a little bit too liberal with that one, right? But that's kind of what it is. It really boils down to trusting. And then on their end, there's hesitation. There's wanting to do things their own way. And that's what it is. And it's like, really boils down to like not listening, right? When you're doing things your own way, it's because you're not listening, right? And that's obviously a major issue. Like there's a lot of other clips that we could have pulled out of this, but this is John's major issue. And the one thing that I wanted to point out too, and I may have already mentioned this, but I want to hit it. So when he isn't trading, when I'm trading, taking that first trade, he's missing out on those fully guided, coached trades where you have the full detailed trade plan that has been given. It is dictated that that trade right there is the main watch. That's the trade I am taking as well. The whole room is taking it. We're all taking the exact same trade, or should be, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it's not an alert service. You're given a trade plan, and then you're guided in that trade. So there's that. He misses that, goes and does his meeting, which is fine. He obviously needs to do it. Then when he comes back, he starts trading again at about 10:30 a.m., which is a time that I've said a million times, don't be trading. There's no reason to be trading then. But that's when Kelvo is doing his live coaching sessions, his trading clinics, and going through other education as well about the action on the day, what it did, how it did this, why it did that, the whole nine. So not only is he missing the trading, but then he's missing the follow-up education. So he's missing everything. Mm-hmm. Everything is going past him. He's missed it all, day in day out. And this is why he's going to perpetually spin his wheels if that behavior is not corrected. And that simply is the truth behind this. You got anything to add on that, Adam?
I think it just bears repeating because, you know, not everybody would have heard, might not have seen our past episodes where we talk about listening. And just to make it so clear, because it's so dumb and obvious what we think we know listening is. So if I was to say to you, Pat, tell me how to get to the gas station. And you say, okay, go down the street 2 blocks and make a left. And I say, okay, you told me go down the street 2 blocks and take a left. Have I listened yet?
Well, no, because you haven't been there yet.
Exactly. So people think because they heard what you said, they've listened.
Yeah. I bet you there's some that answered along and said, yes. Yeah, he's listening. No,
Yeah.
he just repeated. He regurgitated. That's not listening.
Exactly. Let's say 2 weeks go by because I still haven't gone to the gas station. It could be a year. It doesn't matter how much time. If I go those 2 blocks and I make a right, it is at that point where I took the right instead of the left, where I failed to listen. Yes. So we need to understand when we look at these charts, these are evidence, these are points where a decision was made where the person took a right turn instead of a left turn. And it doesn't matter if you told them what to do a year ago. Yeah. The point of action took place, the listening occurred or not occurred at the moment the action was taken that either contradicted or supported the directions given. And so people, I think it's really something to really instill and train in your mind, just like you hopefully brush your teeth before you go to bed. Yep. It needs to be that automatic that I've heard yes, I've understood yes, and I have acted. Now we have listened. Yep. And it can't happen any other way. And when we see people struggling, we know that data points, information has not been properly processed through action. Yep. And so it comes down to how do we decide to tweak our behavior? It is only the behavior, and it's only when that market opens. We've got such a small window to adjust that behavior. And if it's not adjusted at that critical point where we're fully paying attention, we know what our trade plan is, we're ready to act. If we don't act, years are going to go by.
Yep.
And we'll have the same behavior.
Yep.
Always studying, always learning, always hearing, but still yet never listening. And I think that's just something that, you know, as we talk about all of these truth behind the trades, it always really boils down to this one very simple act of learning how to listen and mastering that.
Yeah. And that's why people have such a hard time with it, don't they? Because everybody, if I were to ask them, whoever watches this video, and I ask you, do you know what listening means? Every single person will answer yes. And then if I said, well, can you tell me what it means? They would give me probably some version of the Webster dictionary version of it. Well, that doesn't mean that you understand. That doesn't mean you're just, again, regurgitating. It's exactly what Adam said. And it's a perfect analogy. Does that mean am I listening? And it's like, well, no, you haven't been there yet. It's like, you got to go there. You got to actually act on it. And again, I bet you there were people following along that said yes or wanted to say yes, right? Like, I almost guarantee it. That's one of the hardest things for people to do is actively listen, to actually listen. I know it sounds dumb. I know it sounds stupid. I know it does. And it's probably, again, I bet you this conversation is probably going in one ear, out the other. And they don't understand. There's some people that they don't understand how important this is. This is more important than any technical lesson I could give you. Everybody wants the technicals, right? Like, they want the stuff that doesn't help them. Like that video I put out, like, this stock will go up 500% immediately. Buy now. 10,000 people watch that fucking video in like a few days. Mm-hmm. But all of the rest of these videos, the videos that can actually make them money in the long run and give them financial freedom, truly, like no bullshit, like absolutely. Mm-hmm. These will get like 1,000 views max because nobody gives a fuck. They want the stuff. They want the candy. They want the burger. They want the hot dog. They want the fries covered in fucking cheese and chili. That's what they want. They want junk. right? And it's about what you make the decision that you want to actually put in your body. Now, I ain't talking about food. I'm talking about information, because food and information are the exact same when it comes to like actually nourishing yourself. Like, what do you want to what do you want to ingest? Like, what do you want to take in? I can even talk about family members. I've told them to stay away from certain things because of this, that, and the other thing. Don't fucking do it. Don't fucking do it. Don't fucking do it. What do? Get a message the other day. He did it. It was like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, why would you even tell me that? I don't even want to hear that, because now I look at you like you're a fucking meathead. It's like, why would you do that? It's crazy the things that people subject themselves to, because all of this is just like self-induced. If you don't seek out and take the actions that you want to take to live the life that you want to live, you'll never get there. There's no such thing as a winning lottery ticket, guys. That shit ain't gonna happen for you. I know that's a lot of people's fucking like their retirement plan. Oh, I'll win the lottery. Oh, okay. This is an actual way to get out and bring not only freedom, but financial freedom as well. But you got to listen, and you have to do things my way. I know it's a hard ask, right?
And this was the conclusion that I came to, through some deep work. And this was an aha moment for me, because what is the byproduct of not listening? Well, it's the chart that we looked at, that we are seeing with traders who are, at least they're reaching out and they're turning the curve, I think.
Yeah.
But it was such a stupid revelation. It's like, you're fighting Pat. And I always said this before, we're going to keep saying it, because if you're not listening, if you're taking that right turn instead of a left turn, that is an argument, right?
It is.
You are arguing. Understand that we argue through our actions. Just because Pat says something and say, "Oh, Pat, I disagree with you. You're wrong." Well, we can argue with our actions. Like, really think about that.
Yeah.
If your wife tells you, ask you to take out the trash, and you ignore her and you don't take out the trash, that is an argument. It is conflict.
Yeah.
And so our actions, in a way, betray the people in our life that are looking to help us.
Yeah.
So when Pat says, don't take and I've done this, I'll be honest. I remember Pat specifically said, do not trade that. And I traded it. Yeah. And I lost money. And I'll never forget that. It's like, why did I not listen to him? Yeah. So I took a loss because I argued with my mentor. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a straight out conflict with someone where you speak words. Yeah. So just really, if traders are struggling, really look at your chart, look at your entries, and ask yourself, am I taking right turns or left turns when I should be taking right turns? Am I arguing with my mentor, my coach, my teacher? And then really think about why that's happening and work backwards from there, because then it will lead to other insights that will probably help turn it around if you are struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what it boils down to. And I've called traders on, like, you're like, stop fighting me. You're fighting me. And they're like, I'm not raising my voice, or like, it's like, stop, time out. Like, you're really missing the boat here. You don't have to raise your voice to fight. You're obviously fighting me. Stop fighting me. People will focus on the definition of a word, and it's hard to get past that definition, where there's so much more meaning to a word than just the definition. You understand what I mean? Like, and I find that that's a major issue too. But to stick to this issue, that's what it boils down to. It boils down to fighting, doing things your own way, because if you're there, you're there. Because there's a lot of people watching this, because we've done videos like this before in the past, and I have as well, where it was just me, years ago, doing videos. And people will say, oh, you just want people just to trade like you. And it's like, what don't you understand about this? Like, why is this such a hard concept? It's like, if you're struggling, what the fuck do you know? What do you know? If you're struggling, you haven't found consistency, why would you attempt to do anything your way? Your way doesn't work. It's about thinking, actually, it's not even a complicated thought. This is a simplistic thought. It doesn't need to be a complicated thought. This is simple stuff, right? Like, if you're doing something over and over again that isn't working, and you're paying someone to give you the information and education, and you're not listening to them, stop doing things your way. Your way doesn't work. It would be like baking a cake or something over and over and over again. And it keeps flopping and flopping and flopping and flopping. But all you keep doing is doing it your own way. You're jumping up and down when this fucking cake's in the oven, banging on the oven. No wonder why it's flopping. I'm telling you to stop banging it and stop yelling and screaming and jumping. And you continue to do it. Why? It's the same thing.
Using the same recipe.
Difference there. Yeah, there's absolutely no difference there, because that's what you're doing. And when you start breaking things down and using analogies like that, that's how you get through to yourself, right? Like, that's one way to get through to yourself. Use really off the wall, extreme analogies, something that you would never do. But that's what you're doing in this case. It's the same thing. And that should be an aha moment where it's like, oh, fuck. I am jumping up and down and hitting my oven with a baseball bat while the cake's in the oven. And then I'm wondering why it's flopping, right? Like, do you understand? Like, if you start talking to yourself, like doing self-work on one level or another, trying to get through to yourself, because we're all stubborn, right? It takes a long time to get through to ourselves. There's a lot of fucking baggage in there, man. We all have it. So if you start trying to get through to yourself, the shit will change. I had to get fed up with myself, and I've told this story a million times. The fucking moment that I got fed up with myself, and I was just like, no more. I am doing it like this. No, and not giving myself any fucking rope. No rope. Like, wasn't going to happen anymore. Everything changed like that. You know, the whole $30 to $1 million in 365 in 1 year. And yes, that fucking happened. Day trading is something, trading is something you cannot give any rope to. You cannot give any slack to, because it will eat you, is what it'll do. All of this sums up what we've been talking about, is the truth behind John's trade. So I think if you don't have anything to add, Adam, I think we'll wrap this up. I think this was a great episode, and hopefully I know there's a lot for people to learn from this one. So hopefully they watch it, because this stuff will actually make you money. Okay. Adios, guys.
Thanks, Pat. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.